Hello and welcome back to the Profit Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Robinson, and I am joined by Paul Campett. How are you doing, Paul?
Very well, mate. Very well. It's just me and you today, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We've had, keeping things real and honest. We've had a bit of a last minute cancellation on the interview front, but we wanted to plow on regardless, didn't we? So I came up with the idea of interviewing each other.
Yeah. So this is either going to be one of the best episodes we've ever done, or absolute chaos. Because we've just thought, rather than ditch the time, let's use it wisely. And the guest that we had lined up for today will be a beauty. It will be on at a later date. He's just had to postpone for personal reasons. But we're going to use the time today to do. It's going to be more of an in-depth chat with me and Matt, because I'm not sure we talk loads about ourselves, or we don't give a ton about our background in the interviews or the podcast episodes we normally do. And the last sort of 10 weeks, we've been interviewing other people, which has been really good, but it might be a chance for us to chat a bit about ourselves.
Yep. So the only caveat that everyone needs to be aware of for today's show is that I've written questions for Paul, he's written questions for me, and neither of us know what the questions are. So there might be the odd pause and like a bit of thinking time, and there may be even an answer that's given that on another day might be given differently, but let's see how this goes.
Yeah, Steve, our editor, might have a lot of work to do here because we don't know what's coming. So let's just see.
Yeah, okay. Well, who's going first, Paul? What do you reckon?
Oh, I don't know. I'm quite happy to go first. I've got an icebreaker question for you.
Go on then.
Favourite United number 7?
Up until this week, it probably would have been Ronaldo.
I'm with you there.
So I'm going to say David Beckham.
Beckham. I would have gone. See, I think does Eric predate you then?
No. Eric Cantona obviously was the king and all of that. But I just think with the age I was, like Beckham was, everything he touched turned to gold, didn't it? Like in fact, the stuff that stands out for me for David Beckham was probably the stuff he did in an England shirt, when he scored that free kick against Greece and stuff like that to qualify us. And yeah.
Oh, what a moment that was, coming back from getting sent off in the World Cup as well.
Yeah. So that's but my actual favourite player, although things have turned a bit sour for him since, my favourite player was always Ryan Giggs. So
really,
I preferred the guy on the other wing because I'm left-footed and he was our left footer. He was, so he's the one that I looked up to.
And now you're making me feel a little bit old, because I grew up watching, my first number 7 was Brian Robson. That was the first number 7 for United I watched. And then I pretty much grew up watching Cantona. So I'd have to say Cantona. He just made such a difference. And then Beckham and all the ones after that. And yeah, the left footer when I was growing up as a kid was Lee Sharp. Giggs wasn't on the scene yet. Lee Sharp was the left winger for United.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, David Beckham. All right, one to you then.
I've gone down more the professional route as my icebreaker, because I think it's something that people do ask me from time to time, and I don't think I've ever heard it asked to you. Why do you still coach personal training clients? So I know a lot of people that find themselves in our position where they go into mentorship and coaching, sort of move away from the day-to-day PT stuff. You and I have chosen not to do that. We still do PT. Why do you still do it?
That's a good question. I have been asked that before, but maybe not for a while. Short answer is I still like it. I still really like it. I still like the variety of doing different things as well. I mean, we've got some very, very big projects just around the corner, as like me and you and the team around us are always looking to do other things. I think I'd just get bored if I was just doing one thing consistently. That's probably the shortest answer. As well as that, it's hard to get rid of clients. It really is. Like once you've had them for 15 years or so, it's really fucking hard to say to them, I'm not going to train you anymore. It's murder. And as long as you're getting a good price for it, that might sound, it's not trying to sound arrogant there to newer PTs, maybe going, listen to this dickhead, can't get rid of his clients. Like, it's not that. It's just so hard to get rid of them after a while. That, you know, you keep doing it, and it's not work. Really isn't work. Like, you think what we do and I probably do a couple of hours a day PTing, so it's no more than 10 sessions a week, and it's, you know, I'm pretty flexible with that, and I don't mind if I don't do some weeks and things like that. It doesn't affect me, but for that 10 hours, it isn't work. What was your answer?
Similar to yours. Like, I still genuinely love it. I think a lot of people might think we're just saying that, but I do genuinely still love that side of it. I love being a practitioner. I love being someone that's still sort of in the trenches to some degree. I've got amazing clients. I probably I work with a few more than you at the minute, Paul. I've got 22 clients that I work with at the minute, but a lot of those are in sort of pairs and groups, which is what keeps the diary nice and tight. But everyone I work with is someone that I would go on a night out with. You know, I could go away for a weekend with them. Most of them, in fact, if not all of them, I would probably pay to spend time with them to learn about what they do. Like, I learn a lot from my clients, especially because a lot of them have got a lot more life experience than me. I feel like I really do learn a lot from them, and they've helped my development as a person and as a trainer. So yeah, I just, like yourself, it doesn't feel like work, does it, when you're working with the right people and you've got those relationships?
Yeah, totally. And that little thing of, you know, advice. When I first became a dad, some of my clients who were dads who were 10 years older than me were priceless. No, it didn't affect the PT session, but they would always check in and say, how's things going? And some of the advice I got from them, and then some of the business advice we've had over the years, and all sorts. It's people you just want to spend more time with them. It's not so much you're working with them. You want to spend more time with those people. Yeah, totally agree. I couldn't see myself getting rid of them. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And I like being boots on the ground as well. I think you got to stay in touch with actually doing personal training. I think there's a lot of business mentors out there who've never done personal training. That one baffles me. There are people selling packages of how to be a great PT, have never personal trained anybody. That's ridiculous. And even if they've done it for a year or two, that's mental. Like, to call yourself an expert after a couple of years is ridiculous. So there's that side of it as well. I think it's good to have you be in touch with it.
Yeah, I think I would actually quite struggle with that. I think I'd struggle with my mentorship if I wasn't doing it. I don't think I could hide from the fact that this feels a bit wrong to be telling you to do things that I don't do.
Yeah, and then you kind of have little challenges as well that you think, oh, that's interesting. That's something that, you know, you might see within some of your coaching clients as well, or some of your mentorship clients that you experience with your PT.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to dive straight in for an interesting one here for your career. We'll go for this one. Stupidest mistake you made?
I'm going to go with, I think, especially in the early years, I took myself far too seriously as a PT.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think I was, I don't know. I think it was, I've always been of the mindset that you should be trying, you know, you should try and be professional, and you should try and do things the right way, and like long-term focus and all of that, like do the right things. But
Agreed.
I do think that sometimes I probably took that a bit too far. And maybe that was something I only really had to start unlearning that when I was managing other people and building a team, because, you know, you can't, you know, you've got to create a fun environment. I think you've got to have a good time. It can't just be like work, business. You know, I do think early on I probably did take it a bit too seriously. I probably did just put too much pressure on myself. Sometimes that will have translated into people around me as well. So I think that would be my main one. You know, I think looking back, because obviously I made a shit ton of mistakes, but that's probably the one that I look back on and think, yeah, you probably could have just chilled out a bit more and just you know, been a little less serious, and maybe you'd have had a bit more fun through the tough periods.
Do you still get that now? Because I can relate to that, and I still have to keep it in check.
I think I'm a lot more laid back now. I think I'm a lot more sort of flexible and accept that life happens, you know, stuff goes wrong. But I think when I first started, I just wanted to micromanage everything. I wanted, and even down to the fact that I was actually having this conversation with a mentee yesterday. You know, I found it really hard to accept that, you know, you'd get up to a certain number of clients, and it doesn't just stay there. It doesn't just stay at that fixed number. It goes up and down. And, you know, why does it have to change? Why can't it just stay like that? And, you know, just little things you have to learn that are just a fact of life and running a business. And, you know, it's not all smooth sailing, is it? It's not all rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah, man. Some things you just gotta let them go and move on. Yeah. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. What about yourself? Are you gonna share one on that then?
Oh, stupidest mistake.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Should have thought of this, shouldn't I? When I wrote the question down, I should have thought, what's mine? What was my stupidest mistake? You're gonna have to give me a second here. I think. Do you know what? I think that over the years, I think I've seen, hindsight's good, isn't it? It's a good thing. But I feel like I've seen a couple of trends coming up and not gone for it with a couple of things. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I can remember the early days of kind of Facebook and that kind of networking opportunities and marketing opportunities. And I did see it. I was studying a lot of that at the time, and got distracted by other things. And in hindsight, I think there could have been some really good wins in that. Not just for me personally, because I was with Profit at the time, but I remember kind of the early days of setting up some of those pages and that kind of stuff. And there's been a few examples of that over the years of spotting something a bit earlier than before it exploded and not doing it.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of, I think there's a couple of, not regrets, because I don't believe in regrets. I think, you know, some things you miss and some things you don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But there's a few silly ones in there that I think, yeah, should have just, the lesson for me there was when your gut tells you, just go for it.
Yeah. Especially when you see how some people have then blown up massively just through being there at the right time. They were riding that wave, weren't they?
Yeah, and it's not, you know what? It's not even, I mean, we talk about this it's not even to make money. It's not that. I think I believed in even the Profit model and what we do and have continued to do so much that to reach more trainers, it would have been amazing. That would have been something incredible. I think we could have taken that to thousands and thousands and thousands of trainers, never mind hundreds.
Yeah. That could have gone worldwide in a way, couldn't it? It could have gone abroad and everything.
Yeah, I look back on that and think that's something we could have really pushed. But you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yep. Okay.
What about then?
Oh, go on.
Oh, is it your turn or my turn there? Was that one for me?
Well, that was me asking you your question.
Oh yeah. Right, go on then, fire another one.
So by all means, throw this one back at me if you want to. Mine is, and this doesn't have to be business related, this anything at all. What's something about you that might surprise our listeners?
That's interesting. What's something about me that might surprise the listeners?
I've essentially just asked questions that I want to know.
Is that what it is? Yeah. I don't think there's anything that you wouldn't know about me. Let's see. Do you know what? Looking back at that, I'm fairly boring. I think like my 20s were reasonably wild, but nothing out of the ordinary, I wouldn't say.
Any sort of like weird hobbies or things that you find interesting that maybe many people wouldn't?
Oh, just really boring stuff now. Do you know what? I'm starting to grow my own vegetables. There you go. There's a really Really boring, but probably something people don't know. And really, as I get older, and a lot of people experience this, I think you start to take up some really strange hobbies and habits that you look back on and you think, that looked old when I was in my 20s. And I think I've started to hit that phase where I'm starting to do things like that. I'm starting to enjoy gardening, growing my own vegetables, playing guitar, doing things like that now. So, yeah. What about you? Something that the listeners wouldn't know?
I think I would probably go along with something like, because a lot of people will see us as we are now. If you're a listener, you see in Matt 2022 version. I think a lot of people, or maybe they wouldn't, but to me, it might surprise a lot of people now that we've hosted podcasts and delivered education and stuff like that. Something that I think might surprise a lot of people is that for many, many years, I had absolutely zero confidence in my ability to do most things. That's something I've had to really, really work on over the years. Typical sob story of like being bullied at school, being kicked off the football team because I wasn't good enough and all of this. And then just going away and working hard, just sort of acknowledging that, right, I'm going to have to push myself. If I want to get somewhere, I'm just going to have to do more than anyone else does and see where that takes me.
Is that something, because you've got boys and I've got boys, and my two are getting to an age now where they're starting to, experience a bit of adversity and a bit of things that get harder. And sometimes you get dropped from the football team and sometimes you fall out with your friends and all that kind of jazz. And I think resilience is going to be, I'm really trying to concentrate on that at the minute. That's kind of what you're describing there, isn't it? Like that journey of going through some shit and then having to come out the other side.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that about you, if I'm being honest. I didn't know that was part of your kind of life journey. But I'd imagine, go on.
I was going to say, I think you're right. Resilience is the thing, because I think the concern when you talk about kids is that it's their opportunity to build resilience is being taken away from them in many circumstances. We have participation awards, don't we? We have, everyone's got to win. Everyone's got to have a good time. Everyone's got to be brilliant at everything. No one can be told that they're not good at anything. True.
And I think you can do both. I really do. I think you can create an environment where everybody is having a good time, having fun, but also there's some honesty there as well. And if someone doesn't do something to the best of their ability, you can tell them. I think that's perfectly fine. And, there can be awards for like extra recognition and things like that. I think there can be. And there's a way to communicate that in the right way. I haven't worked out what that is yet for kids, because I'm right in the heat of it right now. But I am I'm trying to really talk to my boys about resilience now, and that you can't take some of these things away. You just can't stop them happening. You can't do helicopter parenting. And I know that one podcast I listen to, the High Performance one at the minute, they talk a lot about that on there, about their dislike for helicopter parenting. And I agree. I think there's too much of it. I think it's not giving people the opportunity, like you had, I've had things like that in my life as well, like parents splitting up when I was 10, and like similar, getting dropped from sports teams at certain points, and getting out of friend circles and losing your confidence with things. It happens. It happens. And to take it away and to try and kind of stop it all, within reason, I think it gives people an opportunity to grow and learn.
Yeah. I think we're going to make less confident individuals in the long run. Like I'm more confident because I've had to come through those things, and I've had to acknowledge where my gaps are and fill them in and learn and find the right people to surround myself with and stuff like that. And just part of learning about who you are, aren't you, and stuff. And also I used it to push my comfort zones. Like when I first started this podcast, it was like, oh my God, this is so far beyond what I would have ever imagined doing. And now it's just something we do every week.
Yeah. And it's some of that's about knowing yourself as well. Like, as I said, I like gardening and stuff like that now, but that's who I am. I think it takes you a while to get to know, well, this is what I like. And if someone goes, what, you like that? And you go, Yeah. It doesn't matter what somebody's opinion of it is. It's your opinion that counts.
Yep.
That your kind of what you like, what you love to do, what you feel about yourself is so important. And I think that's a journey. I think that really is a journey. Yeah.
Yep.
Good. That's a good question, that, mate. That was a really good question. It's if someone looked back on me or you 20, 25 years ago, it's not even the same person, is it?
No. And I think that's something I'm always really mindful of when I find myself, I'm going to use the word idolize, but it's probably the wrong word. You know, when you're looking up to people that you can see from afar, you know, I went through phases of following lots of different like business individuals.
Yeah.
And you forget that like you're trying to copy what they're doing now, but they've been doing it 30, 40 years. And yeah, you might be able to close that gap a little bit and maybe not take quite as long, but you've also got to maintain that perspective of, well, why did it take them that long? What did they have to learn in that time? What did they have to unlearn? What did they have to figure out? And yeah, I think it's just always something to be mindful of, that when you're listening to someone or seeing someone, you're seeing that version of them in that moment in time.
Yeah, that's maybe a good point. Like, don't look at that person now, look at what they were doing 5 to 10 years ago. And can you repeat that? Can you start doing some of that? Because that'll get you to where they are now.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It takes time. Good question. Oh, this was one I wanted to know. Again, this isn't for the listeners, this is for me. What's your de-stress routine? And when you get out of control, because I've not seen that very often. I can't even think of one. I can't think of a time when you were like, you lost your shit. And I'm sure it happens.
Yep.
What is that? Right, I'm going to change the question. What does it look like when you lose your shit? And what do you do about it?
I think when I lose my shit, I actually go really quiet. I go shut down.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I'm that kind of lose your shit person. I think they're the ones to be most afraid of, actually.
Avoidance. Yeah. Avoidance.
Yeah. So I'll go, I need a bit of time and space to sort of work things out and then decide how I'm going to respond. So funnily enough, it's funny you should ask this question, because there was an incident yesterday, Oscar's first sports day. And I won't go into details, but it was a shambles. The whole thing was just a shambles. And I'm stood there fuming. I'm like, this is his first sports day. It's not been done right. Like, all the kids that are well behaving are being overlooked and are not being picked to have a go at anything. And I'm just like, inside, I'm absolutely bubbling. I'm, you know, when you're at boiling point, and I'm just like, this is not the time. This is not the time to let those feelings be known. So like, go away, like have a word with myself, figure out what I'm going to do next. And I'm going to go and I'll deal with the problem. I'll deal with the problem today and I'll address it properly. but I have to take that step back. And I think in terms of, if you want in specifics of what I do on like an ongoing basis, I think for me, I'm fortunate in that I found health and fitness very early on in my life. And I think that's how I've always managed it. I think we always have a constant level of managing, whether you want to call it stress, mental health, whatever you want to term it as, your version of whatever that thing is. So this morning, for example, I was, my plan was to train anyway, but I made a point this morning of coming down here into this room. I wasn't in the mood for going to the gym and facing other humans. I didn't want to see humans. I'm like, no, I'm not going to the gym. I'm going to, fortunate, I've got my own space. So come down here on my own, do my work that I want to do physically, and then use that to work out what I'm going to do mentally.
Yeah. I think that's true, that having found fitness, if you've ever found it at a young enough age where it becomes a part of who you are and your identity. Like, I've trained since I was, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, when you start playing sports and things like that, and then found weightlifting at not sort of 15, 16 when I was doing martial arts. It just helps you keep the demons at bay.
Yeah.
Like, it just helps you release some of that energy that you need to be able to think clearly. And I can't imagine being able to process my thoughts properly without exercise. I can't think of it.
Yeah.
I'd be a mess, I think.
Yeah.
if I didn't have the physical activity to help me out.
And
Yeah.
I don't know as well. I mean, I might be treading on dodgy ground here talking about gender, but I don't know if it's like a male thing, but we need, I think as males, we need a physical outlet, don't we? We need something we do physically with our body to then make sense of what's going on in our heads to somebody, or even just to let it go.
I've no idea. We've probably got no basis for that, but I sort of agree with you. Yeah, like I just think you need to move to think sometimes.
Yeah,
and you know, whatever that is, whatever floats your boat, whether it's running, boxing, weightlifting, just do something that's going to clear the thought process first, and then you can think your way out of it. You did well to keep your mouth shut at the time. I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have been calm enough to stay out of it. I think I'd have probably got involved, but
I'm extremely terrible at conveying a message when I'm under stress. So I don't get my message across, and then that makes me more annoyed because I don't say what I want to say. So I've just learned to go, if you actually want to say this thing properly, just wait 24 hours.
Just take a step back.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll say something. I'm like, that's not really what I wanted to say. Like, I've just messed that up completely.
Yeah. Is that something that's changed over the years as well? Because I know a lot of the kind of mentee clients we've got now that are maybe in the 20s or whatever, you have to teach them that. They're really hot-headed. Not in a bad way. I just think in your 20s, I certainly was. I think most 20-year-olds are more reactive than being able to kind of step back and go, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I couldn't do it that age. I was more gung-ho.
Yeah, and, I was as well, definitely.
Yeah.
I think the difference is I think nowadays when stuff like this crops up, I actually want to figure out for myself first, what outcome do I want? And quite often you find yourself getting wound up and you don't even know what outcome you want. So it's not even worth going down that route, I find. Do you know what I mean? So it's like choosing your battles. Like, you can get angry at everything if you want to, can't you? You can get annoyed at all sorts of things, but when something like yesterday happened or other times in the past, I think just taking that step back to go, if I'm going to make a bit of a fuss about this, what's the actual, what would I like as the outcome? Like, what's the positive thing that I want to come out of this? What's the positive change? And if I can't think of anything, then I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to say, do you know what? Shit happens. Let's crack on.
But I think that's really good because it's simplifying your life.
Yeah.
And as you get older as well, you start to see that you've got to simplify things down. I was even on a business level, I was talking, I had a call yesterday. We were having a chat about one of the projects coming up. And we were talking about metrics to measure in each area of the project. And you could go on forever. You could measure everything, but we got it down to we just need one key metric in every area of the business, and that's it. Because otherwise, I mean, you can still record the other stuff, but you don't communicate it widespread, because otherwise it's just going to get too confusing. And it's the same with that kind of stuff. Pick your battles, which one is worth fighting and which one is, just fucking let it go. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Which is not the easiest thing, I know. But some people do seek that out as well, don't they? They seek out conflict and resolution. They look for it because it kind of validates who they are. They look for where's the next fight that I can get involved in and try and solve. And it's you don't have to, really.
No, not at all. My next one for you, Paul, is, and this came off the back actually of listening to your conversation. I mentioned this before we started recording, actually, your conversation with Beth John, which I thought was a fantastic conversation. There was some real honesty in there and a lot of really good stuff that she shared with us.
She was really good, yeah.
So one of the sort of topics that got brought up in there is sometimes the anxiety and some of the things that you might be scared of as a business owner. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to delve into, having been in business as long as you have now, what still scares you or worries you or gives you a sense of anxiousness at times? Are there any particular things that crop up?
How long a list do you want?
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah. I remember this from the interview, because I did a bit of a listen back, because we always do, and just check on how it was and stuff like that. And I thought, I was fairly honest there about, I still get it today. I still get, what am I, 20 odd years into it now, and very humbly, I've done well, been successful, and in a good financial position and all that jazz. I've been through periods of my business where I didn't have a pot to piss in,
Yeah.
and you just almost living hand to mouth, trying to build it up, but nowhere near, like, I'm in a very fortunate position these days. But I still get anxiety. You still constantly think about, what can you do for your clients? What can you do to make sure that they're happy and that they're satisfied and that they're referring? And you can build up as many systems as you want with that. But at the end of the day, I think we work with people. So one thing that does make me anxious is constantly working with people is amazing in a lot of ways, but it also makes you anxious because you don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one thing that makes me anxious, is not knowing what other people are thinking, even after all this time. That's still something that I struggle to let go of. Yeah, I think that's the one. I don't worry so much about money anymore, because that's like something I'm very organized on now, and I'm pretty well versed on that. But yeah, I think working with people, you always question what they're thinking, and are you doing something that's valuable for them? It's another one. And I think more with the business mentoring side of things, I don't know whether you find this, but you always, I mean, I'm getting more and more and more and more comfortable with this, but some of the business mentoring sessions I do, I honestly don't think I do very much. Like that, it sometimes feels like I'm not doing very much. And that can surprisingly be the most valuable sessions to the mentees.
Yep.
They feel amazing coming out the back of it, and you can feel like, I'm not sure I did much there, and that can create a little bit of anxiety as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. When you can spend 20 minutes listening to someone talk, and then you go, okay, so what do you want to do about it? And then they tell you, and then they go, that was great, now I know what to do.
Yeah, that can literally be it.
Yeah. But I suppose that's like the essence of coaching, isn't it? I suppose that's when some of the work that we do, I think it sort of crosses the boundaries of both mentorship and coaching, doesn't it? And I think the longer you've been mentoring someone, the more it becomes coaching. And
because when you mentor them,
that's when it starts to become that type of stuff, isn't it? Like the person has the answer, the person knows what's going on, or they just need someone to help them unpack it and send them off in the right direction. But usually that person is themselves.
Exactly. And the way that I know you do the same. So the way that you and I both mentor is we do work on the person, because if you can unlock the potential of the person, they'll accelerate their progress 10 times faster. It's about giving them that growth mindset. So by the time you do get them to a position like that, they know the information. And not only that, if they don't know it, they've usually sought it out before they've even come to see you.
Yep.
So they usually come really prepped. And that's when you can start to feel like, sometimes you're not doing very much, but to them, it's still really valuable to have that soundboard, to have that person who listens to them, who maybe offers a couple of suggestions here and there, just gives them a different insight or a bird's eye view of things. But that's probably still a little trigger for me sometimes. Yeah. What about you?
I suppose on that side of the business, I think I put a little bit of pressure on myself to always, and I don't want this to come across in the wrong way, but always stay ahead of the people that I mentor and coach. And I don't mean that in terms of just always have a bigger, better business than them or anything like that. Like, actually, I hope that all of them end up with a far better business than I've ever ran. Like, genuinely, I want them to have that. But I think in terms of like making sure that I pride myself on being quite well versed in a lot of like the upcoming stuff, what's coming next, what's relevant now, what do people need to be doing within their business. So I'm always trying to stay ahead in terms of that side of things, and making sure that the people I mentor and coach almost have that as a bit of a little hidden advantage that other trainers might not get, if they're not working with me. But then I've obviously got the pressure then of making sure that I'm always you've got to be careful with that, because you can find yourself stuck in like a shiny object syndrome where you're always looking for, well, what's next, what's relevant. But I try and break it down into, well, where would this apply in terms of principles? Where would this apply in terms of what relevance might it have in 10 years time? And stuff like that. So I think that's probably that side of things. On the client side of things, the biggest thing for me recently is obviously I made this huge switch from in-person PT to remote PT, and as well as that has gone, and I mean we're already 2 years into that.
Over 2 years, yeah.
There is part of me that goes like, how long will this last for? Like, will people just reach a point where they're like, you know, I just want to go and train in a gym again now, or what? Like, most of my clients still do go and train in a gym. It's just that they come to me for other stuff, and I set their gym work up and things like that. But yeah, it's that's something that has more recently been the type of thing that you sort of find yourself thinking about, going, oh. There is the other part of me, Paul, that also thinks I'll be very well positioned for when we're all training in the metaverse. But then, you know, that's a different story. I'm going to be at the cutting edge of that.
It's weird, isn't it? It's such a, I mean, there's risk involved in all of it, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, you've obviously done a really good job of switching to virtual, and I kind of think, and we spoke about this, like when the pandemic hit and there was people screaming, that's it now, it's all going to be online. And we were kind of like, well, our take on it in the podcast was, look, if you're good, you can use any format you want.
Yes.
Like if you're a good trainer, you can be in person, you can be virtual, you can be online, you can run a gym. It just doesn't matter. Just be good at what you do, because there's always going to be people who want any of those formats and any of those platforms. So there's that, but there is also kind of anticipating upcoming trends. That question I answered at the start, you want to try and be thinking about what's coming up and positioning yourself as well, like trying to get yourself in a decent position. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, and just understanding the world that you're living in, aren't you? Like that move to remote training forced me to build this studio that I'm now in, that's heavily based around being on video and lighting and media. And that's the world we're living in, aren't we? That's not going away. That's just the sad reality of how things are.
It's just part of it. Yeah, I mean that's just part of the way most people have to work these days. So you know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's progression in a lot of ways. Last one from me to you: if you weren't doing what you do now, what do you think you'd be doing?
Well, obviously, I'd be playing left wing for Man United. No, in all honesty, I honestly don't know what I'd be doing, Paul, because you know I've got a degree in strength and conditioning, but I tried that. That's the first thing I went into and was very underwhelmed. So that's how I found myself then going into PT instead and running a business. But I think one thing I would say is that I knew from a very early age that I didn't want a job. I always knew that I wanted to run a business. The idea of business and running a business or being part of a business has always, I don't know why, that's something that I've always gravitated towards. I've had jobs to get me through college and university and stuff, but all that ever did was reinforce the fact that I never want a job. You know,
What age did you know that from then? What age did you think I want to run a business? I don't want a 9 to 5.
I think I'm going to say early teens.
Really?
Yeah. I think I did. I think I knew quite early on. I think whether it just be through watching what people around you do or watching what, I mean, there's a slight, in a slightly different way to how we do things now. There's probably a little bit of entrepreneurship in my family anyway. Like when you go back to my dad's side of the family, they're all from Ireland, and like one of them was the local, he ran the local garage, and then someone ran the local shop, and someone ran, like they all had their own businesses. And even my mum and dad over here, like they had a news agent at one point, they had a sandwich shop at one point. But both had jobs as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And,
different generation.
And 3 kids. So yeah, there's probably a little bit of that in you somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, I just think I I looked around at people that had jobs and was like, well, none of these people seem to be that happy with having a job. None of them seem to be that well appreciated. And they all seem to be rushing towards retirement. That's the thing they're all waiting for. Like, that never made any sense to me. Like, why are we all in a rush to retire? Like,
it's probably a bit of a mix of like, that sounds like, you know, when you look at your parents, inevitably what you do is you pick up on all the bits that you like about them. So you can pick up on things like, you know, the hard work. This sounds like your parents were obviously really hard working, but then you also go, what are the bits that I'm not loving right now?
Yeah.
And you might go, 2 jobs, running a business at the same time, not for me. Like the hard work thing, but I'm going to do it a bit different, and I'm going to get some of the things I want.
Yeah. Right. But I don't know career wise. I honestly don't know. I think there was part of me that at one time considered being a PE teacher, but again, I sort of road tested that. I went and volunteered in a school before. In fact, no, it was while I was at university. So I was doing a placement for S&C, and at the same time, I just decided I'm going to go and volunteer at a school for a few weeks and see if I can get in the PE department and see what that's like. You know, just try it. And after a couple of weeks of trying it, I was like, nope.
I was going to say, I cannot see that one at all.
No, well, like, I thought to myself, PE teacher won't have much paperwork, and I'm just like, no, I'm not doing this. So didn't want to do that. Didn't want to do S&C, and then fell in love with PT when I went down that route. So I don't know, Paul. I think I'd probably have had to retrain. Imagine me as like an accountant or something. I was always really good at maths at school, so maybe that.
I was the same. I was like quite adept at maths, and I just can't see myself doing a job like that at all. I'm probably similar to you. I can't think what I would be doing. I just wouldn't want, and that wanting a job thing is probably more recent for me than you, but I don't want a job again. I want to build a business or build something that adds value to people's lives. And if not, I'll be a gardener. Yeah. That'll be mine.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything like, and I want to be very clear on this, because, you know, these things get listened to for years in advance. Like there's nothing wrong with having a job. It's just that I wasn't a good fit for being an employee. Like, for example, when I worked at WH Smith's, I was the lowest paid person in the shop because I was the youngest. And I would be given a list of jobs to do in the morning on an 8-hour shift, and I would get them done in 4 hours. And in my head, like, this is genuinely how my brain would work. I would be thinking to myself, why can't you just let me go home now, but still pay me for the 8 hours? Because I've done what you expected me to do in 8 hours, but I've over delivered and I've done it quicker.
But that should be the case.
Yeah,
I'm in that today as well, is that if people can get the work done, pay them. But don't just pay them for the hours, pay them what you were going to pay them if they were going to stay there for 8-9 hours. You
wanted an outcome, I delivered it in half the time. If anything, you should be paying me more.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I couldn't get my head around why I was being paid based on my age, you know, and stuff like that. I was just like, this just seems backwards to me. Like, I'm not going to spend the next 20 years just being paid based on how old I am. And like, because you decide that's what people that age get paid. Like, I'm working harder than anyone else in this shop. They're all making everything last twice as long to fill the day.
Yeah. So you would have been some kind of entrepreneur in some area.
Yeah, like, I think even if I'd have gone down like the numbers route, I'd have probably been an accountant that had their own business, you know?
Yeah. Coining it in.
Oh, we made a mistake there, Paul, didn't we?
Yeah. Right.
I think I've got one more for you if there's time for it.
Let's fit one more self-indulgent question in. Let's go.
Because this does apply to both of us. So you've touched on this already, Paul, but you are a dad. What are some of the most important lessons you want to teach your kids?
Ooh.
Or you hope to teach your kids? I'm not saying we will succeed.
Yeah, exactly. I try as best as I can, because I know what my core values are now. So I try, and everything that the kids are doing, my boys do, I try and always pull it back to my core values. So, you know, did you do your best at it? Did you work hard at it? Is number one. Did you enjoy it? Did you have some fun? And number three is, you know, were you kind to other people, or did you connect with other people in some way? And as long as they're doing those three things in whatever they're doing, I'm pretty happy. Like I've never tried to. Obviously, I'd love it if my kids did football, and I never tried to push them towards it. Luckily, they've both taken it up and love it, and they both play for grassroots teams now and are really enjoying it. And it's the same for anything that I just want them to have fun, connect with people, and try their best. And if they do that, that's cool. In terms of, I don't know, advice for parents and what you should try and teach your kids, it's just so hard. Like they're their own person as well, they're their own personality, and try as you might, they're never gonna come into little yous or little your partners. That they're their own, they really are their own little people, especially mine are 9 and 7 now. And it's mad to see them growing up, and they'll have bits of you, but they also start to develop very much a side of you that you might be like, wow, where'd that come from? So just let it happen. Just let it happen. Self-confidence. What you want to teach all your kids is self-confidence, to make sure that they're happy in themselves going forwards.
Yeah. I think that's really important, because I think when you look at a lot of the negatives of growing up in the world that our kids are growing up in, when you look at like social media and things that you could find yourself involved with, a lot of that comes from a lack of self-confidence, doesn't it? And a lack of like self-esteem or self-worth. Like, if you've got to get validation from elsewhere, what does it say about what's going on inside and things like that? So I think it's not about hiding our kids from this world. It's about giving them the tools ahead of time to be able to still engage with it, but maybe just engage with it in a different way or in a more productive way or whatever. You've got to try and think of that as well, haven't you? Like, what world are they growing up in, and what are they going to need to be equipped with to handle that world? Because I don't think the answer is to just shut it out. Like, that's not the answer, because they're going to have to understand these things. But you get what I mean.
And you have to get involved as well. Like my kids they have consoles and things like that, and we have certain boundaries around those and how often they can go on them and whatnot. But these consoles now, they're all online. They're all like, they can play with their friends while their friends are at home and they're at home, and it's kind of a different world to when I grew up. But you've got to get involved as well. Like, I play with them and try and learn it, and they are unbelievable at those things. They're like ninjas. How are they doing this? And I'm struggling trying to pick it up. But you've got to involve yourself in that world. You've got to get involved in it, because like you said about, that in business as well, it's coming. You're not stopping it. And this is the world the kids are going to grow up in. So you have to understand it as an adult as well. My mum still struggles with a mobile phone. And you always think, I don't want to be that parent that's there going, what are you talking about? Like, you need to, because I think your kids, you love your kids, and even if you don't like what they're doing, you love them. So try and figure it out, try and understand what it is that they see in it, and be in that world, and you'll connect with them more, and that'll give them more confidence. And that's all you want, really, because come 18, they're doing what they want anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a constant learning curve, but I guess that's it.
Cool.
Right. It's been a very self-indulgent episode, and I hope that's been in some way useful for people, just to get to know us a bit. And maybe there's some things in there that you can pull out that you think, you know what, some of that applies to me. And I guess some of today's goal was to humanize us a bit more as well, that it isn't just a business podcast, this, and a lot of the mentoring coaching work we do with clients and with mentoring clients is about working on the person. So hopefully you've got to know us a bit better today.
Yep, definitely. A lot of our guests have come on and have been very sort of open, honest.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great opportunity for us to share some of that side of things as well. So yeah, hopefully the audience took a lot from that. If you did, let us know. Leave us a review or something on the podcast. Let us know that you like this type of episode, and we'll do more of this sort of stuff. Feel free to send us any questions as well. We'll include them in the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to answer them for you. Yeah, head over to where you can get your podcasts. Obviously, click subscribe and then leave us a review if you enjoyed the episode today or any of the other episodes. Until then, see you next week.
Take care, everyone.